Is that all completed? Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Human Resources Committee of the 18th of June 2025. I'm in the chair at the moment because I was chair last year. At the full council meeting, we did nominate Louise Bang to be the chair of this group. Can I see if that is still the case? What would be proposed?
Have been proposed.
Second. Thank you very much. Can we have a vote, please? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. And I can now take my leave of the name.
That's it.
Let Louise move across.
Thanks, David.
I'm staying on the committee.
I'll be sure we're happy to. If Councillor Harris has told us to settle down.
Okay, that's. Thank you very much.
There we go. So in addition, at the annual meeting, we agreed as a full council that vice chair would be Beverly Day. We need to ratify that at this committee. Can I get any, so there we go, that is nominated by David, Councillor Civil, seconded by Councillor Nickinson. Can I see a show of hands in favour? Unanimous, everybody. So you are duly elected, come and see. Oh, do I have to come and sit up front? You can, like that, I'll even take my coke out of the way. Yeah, fine. I know, right? Oh, yeah, just spread out. There we are. Very much. Okay, next on the agenda is apologies for absences. I haven't, well, we've got clearly one substitution. Councillor Orrell, are you here for?
Yeah, so apologies for absence from Councillor Teff and asking to substitute.
Fantastic. Do we have any other substitutions or apologies? Do we need to vote to accept those? So would anybody like to propose that we accept those? So Councillor Day has proposed that. Councillor Civil is seconding that. Can we vote to accept those? That's everybody. Thank you. The next thing, so I'm going to assume that everyone has read the papers and the agendas and the agenda. I need anybody now who has a declaration of interest on any of the matters on the agenda to declare it now. It's not a forever hold your peace type situation. So if you do suddenly think of something when we're partway through the meeting, or suddenly remember something, do declare it at that time. I'm going to assume that we have all read the minutes of the last meeting. They were issued alongside the agenda of this meeting. We do need to agree that we're going to accept them as a true record of the last meeting. Councillor Civil has proposed that. Councillor Nickinson is seconding that. Can I get a show of hands to accept those as a true record? That's everybody. Thank you. Next on the agenda is councillor questions and statements. I'm not aware of any. Is that right, Clark? Thank you very much. So none of those. I'm not aware either of any questions from the public. No. Fantastic. We are roaring through the agenda. Look at that. So we've done 7 things already. And then number 8 on the agenda is the business team apprentice. So we will have all read the papers, but would you like to introduce the item or is it an Ian one? Thank you, Ian.
I will slow the meeting down, Chair.
We won't hold it against it.
Bring it back in your mouth.
Okay.
So, as part of the update, later we'll sort of give you some of the changes which has been going on within the support service team downstairs, and our payroll officer, finance officer, has left the organisation to go and join Dorset Council, which is good for her, but it has left a vacancy within our team. So we reviewed the need to replace that person, and we feel that we do not have to replace like for like. Part of that is because over the 5 years since we've been starting, our systems have become more efficient and we've created more capacity in terms of what is needed in terms of that officer time. So we're recommending, rather than replace a like for like, we would like to appoint a business team apprentice within the team. We have previously agreed in principle our commitment to having apprentices within the organisation and giving those opportunities to those youngsters who would benefit from such a post. And we would then train them up in all sorts of things within the team to cover those responsibilities, which would be appropriate for that role, and hopefully increase their knowledge as they go through. They will be at college for 6 hours a week and with us for 30 hours a week. So that's our proposal.
Fantastic. I've read that. That all sounds quite nice.
Quick
Councillor Harrison.
question, how long does the apprenticeship last, please?
3 years.
3 years. Thank you.
Has anybody else got any questions for Ian? Would anybody like to speak to the item? Anybody like to express an opinion? So obviously the proposed one,
Happy to propose it.
there we go. So I've got a proposer in David Civil, and I've got a seconder in Louis O'Leary. Would anybody like to discuss it, or should we go straight to the vote? Go on, Dr. Oral.
I'll just, endorse the idea of Bricklink on apprentices through the college, so it's a great idea, so totally support it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you read the papers and you look at all those green boxes about how it's good for the town, including, development of the town, yeah, I agree, it does sound great. So, one,
Could I just ask for clarity on the proposal in the second? I was distracted by an item,
No problem.
being in the report.
councillor Civil is
I propose.
proposing, and councillor O'Leary is seconding. Should we get a show of hands? Can I see hands all in favour? Literally everybody. Okay, fantastic. It didn't slow us down too much, so the next thing is sustainability officer job description approval. Again, I'm going to assume that everybody has read the papers, but would you like to introduce this, Ian, please? Oh, sorry, this
Yeah, so I'm standing in for Charmaine, who unfortunately can't be here tonight. But just to say, we have, I've managed to leave my notes downstairs, Chair, so I'm very sorry, I'm going to freewheel this. This is a new post. As Ian said earlier, we've been reviewing the team downstairs. What we've been doing is comparing what our business need is for the officer cohort we have. And what's become apparent, and I've just remembered where I've put. Sorry,
No panic, it's fine.
And I could have sworn I bought my notes up here is, oh, I've got my notes, but you grab the CE plan with the things on it, thank you.
I mean, are you okay for a minute? I mean, happy to
Oh,
do the
yeah.
agenda out of order, okay,
No,
fine.
I found it,
Fine.
thank you. So there are some aspects of our thinking that we will be talking to you in a later item. But because some aspects of that can't be shared in the public, and because the job description can be shared in the public and quite rightly should be discussed and debated, what we would like to do is to reassure you that this post has come about whilst looking at the whole team holistically and what the business need is. It's become apparent that we need someone within the organisation above the skill set of one of our project officers who is more capable of contracts leading, contracts management, true project management in its sense, rather than the research elements. We have staff within the organisation that can do the research, can do some of the low-level planning, but what we really need is someone who can take hold of these projects and run with them and own them and push them forward. I've reviewed, and hopefully my colleague will be coming up soon with the CEE plan, and I annotated the plan with all those projects that need a project manager to get hold of them and drive them forward. And why we wanted to go with someone particularly around CEE was because we identified that that is where a lot of our project work currently sits. And it's also, thank you, so so each one of these little coloured tabs is a project that we would be giving to this person should we recruit them, when we recruit them. There is a lot of work there to be done. It sits within the project team because it is overarching. The move we want to make around CEE, sustainability, and that sort of green agenda working within the council is to support it being mainstreamed throughout the council, because it doesn't just sit with green spaces, it doesn't just sit with resort, it has to have an in with finance, with the business side of things, with how we manage our assets. So it doesn't just sit with one particular. We want this to be an overarching who can drive forward sustainability, greener ways of working across everything we do as a council. We want that to be a more senior position so that they have the authority, the autonomy and the skill set to be an expert in the field, which is what we would be recruiting for. We'd be recruiting for someone with a CEE, a sustainability expert knowledge, who can not only lead the projects and do the research, but advise us from their existing skill set. I'm hoping I've covered everything that is in the report, and I've covered everything that Charmaine would have wanted me to cover in this element. But it might be better now if there are elements and questions that need to wait for the later item in confidentiality, we can advise you of that. But both Ian and I have a sort of a knowledge of this and are happy to respond to any questions that there may be around this.
Okay,
So that might be a better way to take things forward.
Councillor Harris.
The salary range, Jane,
Yeah,
I was pleased with what you were saying there. 34,000. How does that compare to other members of staff that were project officers at the present time?
it's higher than the advertised rate for a project officer, which is
Can't say no, never really.
the job description for the project officers as was advertised will be a public domain document. So we can say when we last advertised
Yeah.
for a project officer, we advertised that at a ballpark salary of 31.
And how long ago was that?
Ish. Couple of years,
2 years.
probably.
Okay.
My real concern with this is if we take the jobs that are in the action plan, it's having somebody of sufficient seniority, and I'd still be worried that although we've moved it up, have we moved it up far enough? Because this person is going to be actually negotiating with people like the housing companies, negotiating with people like Dorset Council,
Absolutely.
and doing all
Some
sorts
companies-
of other things, and then has to come back and ensure that certain members of staff here, possibly at a higher level than them, are doing what they should be doing in relationship to the CE agenda. And it just concerns me that we may not be high enough up to get the sort of quality
Right.
and the understanding, because if we just take the headings of the main parts of the action plan, we've got renewable energy regeneration. So they've got to know something about that and be involved with that. Road transport, decarbonisation and modal shifts. And that's all about working with the buses, working with people to get them to do different ways of getting to and from their work. Sustainable food production and consumption. Now that either becomes part of the green spaces team, or it has to be something again where if it becomes part of the green spaces team, then this person would have to actually negotiate with Paul the amount of time that their team is able to spend. So if he or she is not at the management level, how's that going to be affected? And then the final element of the action plan, sustainable consumption, waste and circularity. Now, many of those aspects underneath those titles, as I say, are working with a whole lot of people outside of this council. Are we confident that we've got some level of salary that will attract that sort of person?
All excellent points, and Ian, you might want to feed in on some of these. We did do a benchmarking exercise, which is up on the screen at the moment, against other recently advertised and held positions, councils, particularly some local ones. Our key comparator is always Chippenham Town Council, and you'll see that it falls squarely within there. But salary isn't the only denominator for influence and negotiation. So there are some people, I'm thinking primarily of our finance officers, who frequently tell much more senior managers to them what they should be doing and how they should be doing them. So it's not just a question of finance, it's a question of perceived knowledge and expertise, which doesn't have to be a financial reflection. And this officer will be working and advising more senior officers, such as the resort officer, the green spaces officer, Ben's title, which amenities manager, and the 3 members of SLT as well. So we would be looking to them as our key advisor on this. And it works well in other councils. Dorset Council have a number of advisors that advise, the senior leadership team there. And it's giving them the not autonomy, giving them the not power, boundaries, giving them the capability to be that advisor, and knowing that this council is a safe one to challenge managers and to have those grown-up discussions about how we can do things better.
Anybody else want to come in?
It strikes me perhaps that you could, where do you intend to advertise?
So we advertise through our own social media, but we also use Dorset Council's advertising. They've got their own jobs website and we buy into that. We advertise on LinkedIn to get a good pull. We advertise with DAPTC, and where we can, we advertise with NALC, the National Association of Local Councils. So we try and get well outside of Dorset.
Right, so you're possibly likely to get applicants from Darlington.
We've had a number of applicants from outside the area for other posts who have been looking to move to the area.
Well, it's a very attractive area, I'm not surprised. So anyway, my point is that you could advertise at whatever salary we're going to choose and see what you get. And if you're not happy, given that it's a new post and we don't have to appoint tomorrow, then you could carry on. Some schools advertise for headmasters, don't they? And they hold an
Well, I hope
interview.
that's the head teachers now.
Excellent equality and diversity point, Councillor Harris, thank you.
You know what I mean. And then, go through the whole process and decide none of the applicants was any good. So we'll re-advertise. So providing we're prepared to do that, I absolutely take your point. Maybe it is not enough, I don't know. Although Coventry?
Coventry City Council's climate change officer 38 to 45.
I'm just going to make the point, Councillor Harris. I know your background is schools, as is mine. I feel like it's the same thing as if you're a head teacher and your head of science tells you what order to teach the curriculum in, or your head of languages. You don't overrule, you take their advice, even though you line manage them and that you take their specialist knowledge. I feel like that's what Jane was trying to say. Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a point. I shan't vote in because I don't believe in the job role or what the job role entails. So
Is that because you've got a general skepticism about climate change?
I don't believe that a town council should need to employ a climate change officer. Climate change is a global issue. It was a fact I've made quite principled in a number of years, and I've been consistent in that, and that's what I think.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us know that. I mean, I'm gonna make the point that I feel that everything helps, and that when it comes to climate change, if all local councils do something, then that will add up to a bigger thing.
If I may just point clarity, Chair, that although we've benchmarked against some climate change officers, this isn't purely a climate change officer. It has a much wider remit around sustainability, community education, the development of community-led energy schemes, which will hopefully provide cheaper electricity for local people. So it's slightly wider than climate change in its purest sense.
Okay. Was there anybody else like to
Can
say?
I reassure Councillor O'Leary too? If you just take the very first item on the action plan, working with houses, particularly the houses that social housing, and you have plenty of those in your ward, we would be looking to see whether there are abilities to get hold of grants that would put 1,000 sets of solar panels on the housing in Littlemore. Now, I'm happy that something like that is not something that you would support, but you know, that's what it's all about.
Councillor O'Leary.
If there's grants to do things like my residence, that's fine, but Dorset Council employs a climate change director on about £100,000 a year with a massive team under him, and I just think that, and also people like Astor Housing who have a lot to deal with, also have officers that do similar jobs themselves. I don't think they need a town council to support them with that. They're much bigger of an organisation than we are. So, yeah, it's not something I don't oppose that for my residents, so.
Yeah.
So I think we've heard what everyone's what to say about. Councillor Nicholson.
I just am slightly concerned that we could stray off what a town council should be doing. I think some of this is fine, but I just think we must be careful that we do keep to what we're meant to be doing as a town council, rather than straying into things which Dorset Council should be doing. I know this isn't for all of the whole job, but I just must air that worry.
Okay, I mean, it seemed to me from reading the stuff that it seemed that it would be making sure that green issues are through and are threaded through everything the council does like a thread. And making sure all we do is green. Would you like to say anything else, Town Clerk?
Yeah, just that I've popped the job description up on the screen and you'll see it's that the key responsibilities: champion environmental matters across the council, lead on the CEE projects and continuous improvement. And of course, those CEE projects are regularly taken in front of and approved by the Environmental Services Committee, so there is oversight there. Advise us on innovative projects, and you will see number 5, to help the environment become a golden thread throughout all the work of the council, which is the point you were alluding to, Chair.
That's very clear. Thank you very much. Councillor Zibble.
Thank you. Yeah, my understanding is that the committee process of the council has come up with a list of projects that we as a council wish to attack, as it were, in a not necessarily with a batting order, and within the council offices, we don't necessarily have the skill set required to do that well. Therefore, we need to employ someone with the skill set to do that well and upskill our existing staff. So yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Thank you. And I support your point. Is there's a degree of how long's a piece of string in terms of have you got your pay band right? So have a first cast and see what comes back. And if no one gets where we're looking for, then have a rethink.
Indeed. Okay. Would anybody else like to say anything? Do I have a proposer for the motion? So Councillor Civil is proposing, Councillor Orrell seconding. I would like to have a show of hands who would like to vote in favour of the motion.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you. Who would like to vote against the motion?
1.
Would anybody like to abstain? There we go. So
So that is carried. Thank you.
fantastic, thank you. I've scrolled too far on my bit of paper and I'm off the agenda. Here we go. Thank you very much.
Struggle is real.
There we go. Public comment plan.
So we're number 10, which item 10, under 18's pay rates.
Oh,
On page.
we opened today. Yeah, on the right page now. Right, under 18's pay rate. So is there a presentation to go with this? I'm not going to guess who it is this time.
Just a verbal, well, it would be a yes, unfortunately, Chair, because the agenda states that the report owner is Will Holmes, but this will be presented by Charmaine Denny.
It's
So,
not here.
So this evening's performance, the role of
Tonight, I'm
Charmaine.
going to be.
I mean, we can do our double act here, but it's a relatively simple report. Hopefully you'll have all read the report. We currently have one employee who is aged under the age of 18. It's not our normal practice to employ under 18s in the resort team just because of the level of safeguarding and also public interactions. And our resort team do have to deal with some interesting individuals at times. However,
Councillors.
and the public, yeah. So we do currently have one member of staff aged under 18. They were a member of staff with us when we were running 2 catering establishments. They are a retained member of staff, so we still have them. They are now, they've remained part of the resort team. And managers believe that parity of wage is incredibly important regardless of age, when staff are carrying out those identical duties and where they're being held to those identical standards of being trusted as any other member of the resort team. So because we pride ourselves as a council on being a real living wage employer, and we have always said, particularly via HR, that we are committed to fair pay and conditions, we would like to put that under 18s member of staff on the same pay as we do the over 18s member of staff. We are asking you to make a decision based on a ruling across the whole council and for the future, even though it's not our intention to employ under 18-year-olds. This does rather ensure that we are seen to be the equitable and fair employer that we have.
Thank you very much. I have a question. I did read the arguments in favour of equality are very strong. Somebody doing identical work needs to be paid identical pay. I just wondered, has it caused particular issues in the team? Do you know, so I'm not asking you for details, but has it caused some bad feeling and some difficulty?
I understand that questions haven't been raised.
Fair. Okay. Would anybody else like to, Catherine?
How does it compare to if we employed an under 18 apprentice?
Let me just whiz back up the agenda, Councillor Harris, just to see if it's.
That would be, but obviously an apprentice is a different, is a job with training, isn't it? So that's
Yeah.
a different thing.
Well, I'm not saying it should be the same.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, have we got that in our policy somewhere?
Additionally, apprentices are not particularly well paid, and you have just agreed as part of the business apprentice to pay the new apprentice a much fairer rate.
So in the first 12 months, they will get paid minimum wage,
Right.
which is the lower amount, which is identified in the report for under 18s, and then they will move up to the real living wage thereafter. So then they would go up, but we are not looking to employ an under 18 apprentice. I don't know if that's.
The paperwork said over 21, isn't it? It's a preference.
Just because of the skills we need an apprentice, bearing in mind that's a previous item you've already.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Would this involve, is this going forward or would this involve back pay?
That's a great question, that is. My understanding is it is just going forward because the report does not state it any differently.
And on the whole, I think if you were 17, you got a pay rise of £5 an hour, you'd be delighted. It's probably like.
Yes, as long as it.
I would be wondering why my pay had doubled at the age of 17.
Litigation, saying we want to know, well, therefore I'm entitled since, since I was first.
There's been no
employed.
discussion regarding back pay and it's not part of the decision.
Unless it's at all.
Just be, because you are essentially giving this person a pay rise.
Yeah.
And you're right, Chair, very few people turn that down.
Did you have your hand up, councillor?
No.
Did I see a hand up over here? No. Would anybody else like to say anything? Do I have the recommendation of officers is to, recommendation. Your proposed, councillor Harris, seconded by councillor Surrey. Let's have a hands up for all in favour.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is the town clerk's annual appraisal arrangements. Biggie.
We're doing it now?
Only if you wish to see me, right, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So the arrangements for the town clerk's appraisal are detailed within standing orders. In previous years, the appraisal has been carried out by the chair of the HR committee and the leader. We are asking that is agreed, but for the next 3 years, so that we don't have to keep bringing this back to you. And my fear is that if that were to change in the future, someone who recently finds themselves as chair of HR or the leader may take it as a personal slight. So I believe it's best to take the annual reconfirmation of this and personalities out of it and just stick with job descriptions that the HR committee chair and the leader will carry out the annual appraisal for the town clerk. And I'm taking that up to 2028 to take us to the end of this administration.
I was going to ask what was special about 3 years, but that's all at the end of the administration.
And in 2029, there might be a different set of thinking, but this just means that this same relatively minor decision doesn't have to come back to you every year.
That does sound sensible, and I would like to put out to the committee that if we continue to have the town's clerk annual appraisal done by the leader of the council and the head of HR, that will be some continuity, because in this year coming, that would be me, myself and Councillor Harris, which it has been for the previous year. So I think that on that particular point, it will be nice to keep some continuity. Would anybody else like to say anything about any of that? Councillor O'Leary?
Yeah, the only thing I do have a slight hesitation about, and this, in terms of personal is, sorry,
I know what you're going to say.
yeah, this is two members of the same party.
Uh,
That's the only thing I'm gonna say, is obviously nothing against either of you, I haven't
Yeah.
supported you for chairman of the council, chairman of the committee, but
Chair,
obviously
even.
there is no obviously cross-party working arrangement in this recommendation. With my only sort of concern.
What would you propose? Have you got a proposed solution for that? I can hear that it's an issue.
The only thing I could perhaps think is perhaps inclusion of the deputy leader, which is currently a member of another party that's not myself.
Yeah,
But not saying that I don't want to be on there, isn't something what I'm raising it, but if you include the deputy leader, which is currently somebody else, that could open up to perhaps.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
I think just, it's quite unusual for town clerks' appraisals to be carried out by more than one councillor.
Hmm.
Most councils have it carried out by the mayor.
Yeah.
Because we have more councillors and a specific HR committee and a different role, it was widened to 2 councillors. I would be hesitant to wish to engage in a process that had 3 people in it. Just because I'm not sure that would give the clarity of focus for what the annual development plan and annual work plan needs to be.
Agreed.
That is me, having said this is all about job descriptions and not about personality, it's very difficult to be annually appraised by a committee, which is why it doesn't come to the HR committee.
Agreed. Also, and with the because we've got in terms of going to mayor, obviously, because our tradition is that we have a rolling mayor, I do think continuity is useful on this occasion. Councillor O'Leary?
Yeah, the only thing I'm coming at this is, I've always been made aware that the chief executive at Dorset Council, obviously it's a much larger position, is always a cross-party assessment to ensure that every part of the council is sort of involved in that appraisal. The only thing I could perhaps ask is that there is a consultation with perhaps group leaders in regard to the appraisal.
I think possibly we could think about that moving forward. I'm minded to vote in favour of the motion.
I'm not saying because I have anything, to raise, but I just think,
I do know that.
Remainder of the year, but next year, for instance, I might kick out, but whoever replaces me as the second largest group leader may sort of want to have a say on something.
Also, I feel when I stood, believe it or not, for when the town council, everybody told me it was not political. And that has not been my entire experience so far, but on the whole, I think we are less political here at Weymouth Town Council than Dorset Council are. And so I believe it's less of an issue, and I do feel that on the whole, lots of members of the parties represented here have good relationships with each other and are able to speak to each other. So I feel it's less of an issue here than it might be at a different in a different institution. Would anybody else like to say anything? I think we're going to move to a vote if nobody's got anything else to say. Do I have a proposer?
I'm happy to propose. You can propose yourself.
I mean, honestly, I would love to. I'm going to second it then, because I do think this is a no-brainer. Is there any, so let's have a show of hands. Who is in favour of the motion? Oh, everybody in the end, yeah, lovely.
Thank you, Chair.
So that's number 11 done. So are we on the last item? Is number 12 the last one?
It's the last item before the item to exclude the public.
Okay. So item 12, information items.
if you'd like me just to walk you through a
I
couple of
would
those,
love
Chair.
that.
So members will note that on the list of actions from previous meetings, you have from the 13th of September 2023, bring forward a report for consideration in 2025, i.e. in the new a year after the new administration had come in to allow everybody to sort of settle into the roles, regarding job evaluation and harmonisation. This is the first information item in front of you. Officer recommendation is that this no longer needs to be carried out. There's been significant turnover in areas of the council, which means that some of the job, or the majority of the job evaluation opportunities are no longer with us, and contract harmonisation has not proved to be an issue for the same reasons. We have far fewer contract variations across the council now, and no officers see any particular need or benefit of doing what could be quite a costly exercise at this particular stage.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
Armed Forces Covenant, I'm sorry.
No, that all sounds very, yeah, that all.
Armed Forces Covenant update, I will be meeting with Councillor Dickinson to talk about how we make sure that the elements of the Armed Forces Covenant that relate to HR are taken forward. So do we ensure that our job advertising is accessible to veterans? Do we support veterans in applying? And do we support veterans and ex-service members whilst they are part of our workforce? Also extends to councillors and standing for election as well, but primarily with this being HR, it is the workforce. I and Councillor Dickinson will be meeting with representatives from military organisations locally in early July on a number of aspects and actions coming out of other meetings, but the HR side of things will be included in that discussion, and I will be happy to report back after that meeting's been held, Chair.
Fantastic, Councillor Civil.
Sorry, will that include armed forces reserves as well? It's not just former servicemen and women. It's
Absolutely.
cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, we've got a red one. I don't like red ones.
I'll read it.
No, performance
Management
performance training is not yet performance training not yet identified. That's the provider.
Partially complete development training that has been identified separately. This was completed in May 2025.
I know, it's just been picked up by spell check. My apologies, Chair. But it then says this was completed in May 2025. So we've done managers have all done 2 days worth of training with ACAS on HR processes, including disciplinaries, how to carry out investigations. So it is partial. I'm not sure why that's red, because it is partial, because we're halfway through it.
I would suggest that could be, we just need clarification on the initial, what is performance management training or what's development training, or whether they are one of the same.
So there is an element of performance management training we are still to roll out, but some of it has been completed, so I'm not sure why that was in red, and I believe that to be an error. Particularly the film part.
And do we think it's in hand?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've had ACAS in for 2 days. The training was very well received by managers. I personally found it incredibly useful, particularly around the decision making with regard to HR. But there is an element, as I said, we do still want to do, and that is the general day-to-day performance management, so that we can make sure that managers are supporting all staff to excel, and we will be looking at that in the future.
So we haven't identified the training yet, but we're on our way to, okay. Anybody want to ask a question? No,
And then the last element of the information items, Chair, is
it's the forward plan, which doesn't bear reading out, does it? But we've all had a chance to read that. Anybody would like to make a comment? Let's rush on then before the meeting gets too long. So item number 13, extensive of the press and public.
So you need to vote to exclude the press and the public, Chair. So it's standard vote, propose a seconder, and the reasons that we will be looking to exclude members of the press and public under the Public Bodies Admissions to Meeting Act 1960 is because we will be moving on to discuss confidential matters which may or may not relate to individual members of staff performance, terms, conditions, etc.
Okay, so that's an absolute no-brainer. I'm going to propose that. Does anybody care to second it? You can put your hand up, councillor. Yeah, I'm going to go with councillor Oral on this occasion. Thank you, councillor Oral.
And then you need to.
Oh, sorry, of course we do. Don't. Let's get our hands up for that. Who would like to be? Yes, there we go. That's unanimous. Everybody would like to. Thank you for the.
So we'll just turn the owl off. Send it to bed.